Good afternoon. It's 5 o'clock, and welcome to Beer with the Old Growler. It's April the 7th, 2020, and here we are in Brooklyn, New York. The Old Growler here has been cut off from being able to go out to his pubs, bars, taverns, watering holes, and suds buckets. Well, and he knows that it's not so good to drink alone, so he figures, well, why not invite the rest of the world to come in and have a beer with him at 5 o'clock? I mean, you got to take a break sometime, folks. Well, I'm glad to be here. It's a very nice day outside. And as you can tell, I've got a real thirst. And so I went over to the Waterfront Ale House. Said it again. I went over to the Henry Street Ale House, where we usually do our Thursday beer tasting called Meeting Expectations. And our host there, Jerry Scott, he's still running growlers out of the window there. They got the window open up, and it's nice and open. And the kitchen is also open with a limited menu, I believe. Give them a call if you're in Brooklyn. If you're stuck here in Brooklyn, in the Brooklyn Heights, downtown Brooklyn area, if you're able to walk around over to Henry Street, take a look on their website, or if not, I'll try and put something in the information box downstairs. Okay. If you are new to this, well, if you found me by either going to look for Peter LaFrance on YouTube, or possibly Beer Basics on YouTube, and so you'll at least know my name. And Peter LaFrance, the Old Growler. And I've been a journalist for a good 40-something years now, maybe 45, covering the beer industry. And right now it's 2 minutes past 5, and I need something to. As I was talking about my thirst. And so, Monica, greetings. Good to see you. Have arrived, or there. I'm about to pour a porter that Jerry so kindly placed in my order bag, and I don't know how it got there, but it got here, and it's a porter. And I think since he gave me, since I purchased, a growler full of, let's see what it's called, Road to Ruin by Two Roads. Oh, another Two Roads. I didn't know. Well, I don't mind. I love the kids up there. Road to Ruin is probably a little bit alcoholic, so he figured I should start out with something. Greetings, Mary. How are you? It's a beautiful day here in Brooklyn, as I was saying. So anyways, Jerry, well, I found this, what it looks like it's more than a pint. It's a pint. So I'm going to pour that very quickly. See how steady my hand is. In the words of Michelin, oh, a fine, steady hand. All right. For those of you who are with me there, Monica and Mayor, it's a pleasure to be here on Tuesday, the 7th of April, and it's after 5 o'clock, so cheers. Damn, that's a nice porter. That really is. Hey, Steve, greetings. Glad to see you. Oh, gee, well, let's see. Do I have a for tasting today? It's an India Pale Ale from the way back of the fridge, and a French Toast Stout from WeldWorks Brewing Company, which we did a tasting. It'll be a retasting for the French Toast Stout because we did one a little while ago at the ale house. And when we do the tasting, there'll be a link up above and a link down in the description box explaining where you can take a look at that tasting, that meeting expectations, and see if if the two of us, if I agree with, or if I can add or subtract anything. Anyways, I talk too much. Another sip of beer, kids. Oh, Okay, so I've given you a chance to, let's see, I've mentioned looking forward to Congress Street India Pale Ale. This is 7.2 brewed in Massachusetts. Let's see if it's got a date on the bottom. I'm afraid to look. Oh, yes, it does. Oh, whoa. We're going to find out how long a beer can last in a can. Okay. This one, it looks like it was canned June 4th, 2016, 4 years ago. Wow. That's been in the back of the fridge for a long time. That'll be interesting. Well, the French toast is relatively new. Yeah, this one. Oh, bring it over here. Oh no, that's not it. I don't know if it has a date on it, but we'll have to check when it comes time for the tasting. And but I can tell you that's a relatively new one because it was a sample sent to me by the kids at the brewery. Okay, let's see now. Where are we? I'm going to move this open. See this here. This isn't something to have really near a laptop, or with, well, as far as my dexterity. Off of the wall of beer, we've got a Labatt, another a classic. It's the Velvet Cream Porter from Labatt, and this is in a larger bottle. But even this one goes back a number of years, and it has a debate story to go with it, I do believe. And a Red Baron from the Brick Brewing Company. And when we get some beer folks taking a look at this, I'm going to ask around, see who knows anything about the Red Baron in Waterloo, Ontario. And there's a story there, and I didn't bother. I saw it on the wall and on the wall of beers, and it was within reaching distance. So I said, well, why not take it down? And it seems to ring a bell as to either being connected with another beer story or not. But those are the beers. And that's what we also, for when, should any of the beer geeks show up, we've got some talking to do about Thomas Hardy's Ale, some of the old beers that I was showing you a little earlier. But anyways, so it's bar talk time. I don't have to talk about beer all the time, you know. I really, I can, but Carrie, good to see you, my friend. Down there in Friendswood, Texas. Pleasure to see you. Anyways, I hope you all are doing very well, or at least as well as can be expected. Welcome to the Old Growler, and I'm here to just kind of chit chat, I think, today. Let's see, did I write anything down here? Well, I have an odd bunch of notes. I always have to write. I live and breathe. Oh, well, before we get deep into discussion here, it's National Beer Day. You know, like well, everybody, if you've got for somehow you're connected to beer somehow, whether you're drinking it or whether you've seen a commercial. Yes, national. Yeah, that's it there, Carrie. That's what it is. So raise a toast to National Beer Day. That brings us all, as Homer Simpson said, the cause and cure for all of man's evils. Or something along that line. Oh, Robert. Wow, good to see you. Okay, well, having a coffee. Coffee is fine. I've got some hints of coffee in this porter that I'm drinking. So we're joined together at the coffee, so to speak. A pleasure. Anyways, this is I've kind of said this is number 12 of the Old Growler, which means I've been chit-chatting with you fellas for at least 2 weeks and 2 days. So it's been 10 days, 12 days. Figured that one out. And so it's been fun having you with me. Oh, we got somebody else in here. Yes, sir. Good to see you there. Um, so it's been a while to sit here and chit chat. And also, for those of you who don't know, some people fancy me a journalist. They've actually paid me money to write, and that is what I'm supposed to do. But I've noticed over the last 12 days and a week before, really, when they started to really close things down, and when I lost all of my bars and restaurants and taverns. Um, it's been since then, and the ability, I would say the one major effect that I've noticed is the inability to concentrate for long times, for more than 15 or 20 minutes. And I used to be able to sit and work, turn out maybe 1,500 words in an hour. It was gibberish, but I could whittle it down to 750 words in another hour, and it started to make sense. And I used to be able to do that. I could pack, let's say, 2 days into one day's work, really, if I just sat down there and really concentrated. And so I've noticed that's, as I say, being a writer, that's what you're supposed to do, and it was difficult, and it was kind of something that I was caught up in, of course, and a little worried. However, what it was is I started to Friday, I believe, maybe it was Saturday. I started to take a look to chart exactly what I'm doing and how I'm doing and what I get excited about during the day. And the most excited I get is setting up for this chit chat. And the reason it is because the thing that I value, the thing that when you get into situations like this, you appreciate your most valuable things and you hold on to them, and that is the ability to communicate directly with people. Writing is a way of communicating. I give you that. And some of my publishers, John Wiley, and my old publisher up there at Beverage Media, they seemed to think that I was good enough to get paid to write and edit or edit. So I must have been doing something right. So if you're a writer, you're supposed to write. Well, I think it's more of the communicating and the direct communicating. I have received answers from people that have made comments, and particularly sending letters directly to me. And I'll put the direct email address down in the description box below, but it's Peter.LaFrance, one word, at yourbasics1word.com. And it's only been 12, this is now 12 days of doing this, and I have a good number of people drop in and mention it. And so it gives me a response. I get the idea that I'm not just talking to a camera. And even if it was just talking to a camera, sometimes you get to that point to where you can convince yourself that that camera is more important than talking to the wall. Although I don't think I've ever, have I talked? Yes. Yeah, no. I've never talked to the wall. I've talked to myself, but never to the wall. Yeah. And I've talked to myself, oh, yes, and answered myself. That's where you have to worry about it, say. When you start answering yourself. And you're not another person, You're talking to that person and you're saying, well, that's a darn good porter. What do you think? What a better porters? Well, not really. I mean, it's not a bad porter, but it's got a bit of a rasp to it. It's more like a stout, if you know what I mean. Oh, this is a porter. You see what I mean? Okay. And that was one of my intelligent friends. And I get to the less intelligent, the ones that, you know, where you're really asking a stupid question. You're asking a stupid person, not asking a stupid question. Then they get to be they're not little nice Irish fellows. No. But anyway, let's see, where were we? We were talking about being able to concentrate and doing things and communicating. And I'm going to, let's see, do I have enough people to bore? Yeah, I've got 4, it looks like. Yeah. But anyways, when you get in situations like this, you have a tendency, is if you bother to think, well, you're kind of forced to think about things, but then no, you can become fixated with cleaning up. And if I would take the camera off of there to show you the pile of beer cans and bottles, of dusty ones that are here that need to be put into cases, well, you'd understand that I could probably do a little more physical labor around here, which should be part of the routine, which getting into a routine is I think, incredibly important when you're under some kind of stress. And this is some kind of stress. I don't, let's see. So the reaction to it, and the way, as I say, it's communicating this way and having a very difficult time actually writing with a keyboard and expressing myself through the writing. But it draws to mind a situation back when I was in high school. And to bore you with a little past history, it's not incriminating or anything, and you can take it for what it's worth, but when I was in high school, I was lucky enough to do little odd jobs for neighbors. I lived in it's a suburb. The houses had maybe 1.5 acre to each of them, and it had originally, the area had originally been a farm. And I might have explained in one of the earlier Old Growlers about Mr. Gowan, one of the first people to transmit radio signals any major distance non-commercially. He experimented with large triode and diode tubes, vacuum tubes, and different things. But his thing was radio, and he set up a chain of radio stations in the Kuomintang regime in China before the Second World War, and they were eventually used to watch for Japanese planes. But so he was in his they had to been late 80s when I knew him, and he taught me how to make a crystal radio, where it was you'd have to Google it up if you've never seen a crystal radio. But what it was a crystal. It looked like a piece of mica, like quartz, but clearer. And you would put a little wire down, and you would connect it with a screw to a holder, and the wire would connect with the crystal, and you would connect a headphone to it, and you could hear radio signals. Garbled. I mean, it was every AM station. The most powerful one would finally come through if you moved the little wire around. But he taught me about that, and it had to do, and then went on to working with vacuum tubes and learning resistance, ohms, how you would use a resistor, putting transformers and amplifiers, how they would work, winding, what was called a variable condenser. It was, you take a toilet paper tube and you would wrap it with copper wire, and then put glue over it, and just at the very top you would scrape it, and then you would slide. There would be a slide that you would slide another wire across the top of it, and that was how you tuned the radio. And so I learned this, and I was fascinated with it, and particularly shortwave radio. And shortwave radio at that time, you could listen to the big ones were, of course, the Voice of America, Radio Moscow, and of course Radio Habana, Cuba, Broadcasting Habana. Let's see, Voice the Voice of the Netherlands. This is the BBC Northern Service speaking to Northern Europe on 1415 kilocycles. Good evening. Let's see, CBC, that was a really good one. Let's see. HCJB, Heralding Christ Jesus' Blessings from Quito, Ecuador. I think that was one of the first evangelical radio stations I'd ever heard. And again, it was on shortwave. And back then, you would, if you heard a shortwave radio signal from a national broadcaster, oh, hold on, I was looking at this here. Don't think I hear that today. Oh, well, I'm not quite too sure. But anyways, you would, if you heard from a broadcaster, you would send them a little note, a letter, and they would give you the address at the end of the broadcast. You'd have to listen to the end of the broadcast before you could get the prize. And the prize was what was called a QSL card. And that meant that you sent a letter to the station, to the broadcaster, and saying that you heard them at a certain time, on a certain date, and you heard a certain program. And say either thank you very much, or I learned a little bit, or just that was it. And you would send it to them, and they would send you a postcard with their logo on it and a picture. And I know Radio Nederlands sent me a whole package with a book which would teach me how to learn basic Dutch. Let's see, I forget some of the other swag that was sent around, but it was interesting to hear the different news broadcasts. Particularly, again, this was in 65, 66, 67. And it was just as the situation in Southeast Asia was getting interesting. And I could hear the same event being told by Radio Moscow, by the CBC, by the BBC, and by the VOA. And it was, to me, I think that might be what got me interested in researching and in journalism and in following stories and in making sure that in following sources, being interested in a source. Where did you get that information from? How do you get that information? But the other thing that it did was it got me interested in accents, and even in AM radio at that time. KFLR down here in Charleston, South Carolina, and we're going to be with you all night long listening to the sound of Patty Page. Let's see. Any one of the if you want me to run through accents, sometimes I will. But that's what got me interested. What it discovered was that I was interested in the community. My parents decided I would go to Norwich University, mainly because my father taught there and I could get in. But for electrical engineering, because they perceived that I was interested in radio. The thing is, it wasn't the radio I was interested in, the electrical engineering that I was interested in. It was the communicating that I was interested in. And to rattle on personally a little bit here, it's the communicating that I'm interested in here. So that's why I really would like to hear from you guys. If you could just put something down in the comments box, or send a note, just so that, as I say, I know I'm not talking to a camera. I know that there's some of you out there. Monica, I know you personally, and Mary, my daughter, she's there, and Steve with Monica there, like that, and Carrie down there in Texas. I boy, oh boy, I appreciate you hanging out, watching, or listening to me. I've tried hard not to rattle on so much about Norwich and that type of thing, but when you sit and you do contemplate and think about things like sitting in a bar and chewing the fat, you realize what is important, and communicating to me is important. To be able to even this basic thing here, as I say, convincing myself that someone's on the other side of that camera. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you very much. I tell you, I do appreciate it. I really do. It's I think I might have mentioned it in a couple of the other old growlers. It's I can imagine it's like someone it is kind of like the good old days, talking back and forth on this. It is, but in saying that as well, it kind of reminds me of the scene in Apocalypse Now where Kilgore has the boys on the beach and they're doing the barbecue, and the conversation goes along the lines that the voiceover goes along the lines that they had the barbecue there, they had the steaks, and they had the beer, and they tried to make it as much as it was like home, and the more they tried to make it like home, the more they missed it. It's good to be able to do this, but not to be able to shake hands, not to be able that's something. If you stop to think about it. But you learn to appreciate stuff. It's kind of like panning for gold. You know, we've got plenty of time on our hands now. It depends on what you do with it. And if you go up to the gold mine there and you stake your claim and squat right down there and put your pan down, or if you're lucky, you got a buddy there, you can build a sluice maybe and start that going. And if you got your buddy's got a buddy and he's got a buddy, well, that's the four of yous. And if you know that you're going to have to split it 5 ways, but what the hell, you can put not only one sluice but maybe 3 sluices, and you got 3 claims along the way. Why not get together? Well, I got a feeling that's the way things are going today too. So it's been that way, always will be, I hope. No, I don't hope, I know. Yes, sir, I know. Yep. Boy, that's a good porter. How far along are we? Oh, geez. A half hour into the, okay, kids, it's time for a tasting, I guess. I've been remiss. No, I've been Peter, but I've also been Peter for 28 minutes and 45 seconds. So that's, or the old growler, I'm sorry, I slipped out of character. And yeah, what a character. I'm tempted to open up this this Congress Street India Pale Ale. I know I don't have too many pale ale folk. Well, I know I've got a lager fan out there, but this here, I think it's got to be opened. And for those of you who are latecomers, it was canned in it's August 8. So that's August 4th, 2016. So that's 4 years ago, more or less. I don't do math too good. As I said, I just use words. So let's crack this. Let's see. Well, first, let's see what it is. It says right there, Congress Street India Pale Ale. So we know that's what it is. It's got 7.2% alcohol by volume. It's 1 pint. Brewed in Massachusetts. Oh, wait a minute. It's got, oh, Trillium Brewing Company, Massachusetts. There we go. Yes, sir. 369 Congress Street, Boston, Massachusetts, and 110 Swamit Road in Canton, Mass. There. That's what it is. So we're going to start with the Congress Street. And as I say, it's an old one. So we're going to find out if beer, especially in India Pale Ale, at 7.2%. That should have lasted a while, even if it was in a bottle. Okay, let's try it out. Now, what are we expecting? This kind of an old ale. I would say it's gone past its prime. I mean, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. That kind of passed your prime. But 7.2% alcohol, and it doesn't say, it doesn't have any bittering units on it. So I'm not quite too sure what it's got, but we're going to give it a shot. Crack it open. There you go. Geez, I should have cleaned the top off. But anyways. Oh, more, yeah, well, I wish I had some Molson. Here we go. All right. Now the first thing I'm noticing is that it's a cloudy beer. I mean, that's cloudier than Boston when the fog comes in. But it's got a nice head. Whoa, it's got great hops. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I give you a beer. Actually, it's an ale, an India Pale Ale that can last a long time in a can. This one really settles it. Oh, I tell you. Wow, that's something. The balance. The thing I don't understand is the it's how cloudy it is. However, that could be time. It could be a part of the breaking down of the hops, but that could also be the reason that it is so nicely balanced now, is because the hops have had a chance to relax. The can has been kept in a fridge, so it's and if not in a fridge, it's been in a room with a northern facing in an apartment building that has very thick brick walls and concrete walls. So very rarely did the room ever get above, I can't imagine getting above 75 degrees. I mean, it couldn't. And these were in a closet, again, against the walls, interior walls. So it would be tough to imagine it being abused. Boy, that's really something. Ah, in there. That's it. That's it. IPAs there. Those are great. Although a lot the wee heavies there are even better. And most of the time there it'll be going for oh, let's see now. Wee heavies about 8-9% alcohol by volume, and that's almost a barley wine. That's too much. Too much. Too much. Too much. This is a super little. Super little beer. I'm going to. I wonder if I should save the French toast for tomorrow. Although French toast really doesn't keep unless you, I know, put it in the refrigerator and eat it, cold, or cut it up and warm it up in a microwave with some milk and call it some kind of pudding. Something? This Congress Street, this Congress Street India Pale Ale I'd like to sit here and drink a little bit more of it. So I'm going to refrain from the French toast today, if you don't mind, and we'll just do one of these. I see we've got a newcomer, number 5. Greetings, somebody new in. Thanks for the thumbs up again, very much. Well, go back to 4. Somebody jumped in and jumped out, I'm afraid. But all right. Well, let's see. Oh, tell another story. I gotta be careful because they're like Santa Claus, you know. I might run out of goodies before I get to the end of my my trip there. But let's see. Once again, I'll beg. Yes, please. Can I have some more? Beg for, well, not beg. I'm going to ask those who are watching, and to please leave something in the comments box, or write to me in particular via the email of something that you would like to hear talked about. I mean, when you go to your bar, there's got to be some kind of topic that's other than, well, the weather, let's see, and sports, and your boss, if you have one. And if you don't have one like me, well, it's kind of, yeah, you can't complain. You can. In fact, we're probably, I think, harder on ourselves than we are when we work with an office, in an office. I wouldn't be surprised that if you asked, for the reason that when you work in an office, you don't have to think. You're told what to do. It's a lot easier. When you're out here freelance, you've got to know your bookkeeping, you've got to know marketing, you've got to know social networking, you've got to know how to present yourself on YouTube, you've got to know how to present yourself on Instagram, you got to remember to post twice every day on social media. You have to know that you have to put 250 words to 500 words in each one of your postings so that you get noticed by Google. You notice that you have to repeat at least 3 times in the body exactly what the headline is, so if the headline can be, the SROs can find it. Oh, and then you have to know video editing, and then you've got to know how to do swipes, and you have to know how to do cuts in video editing. Then you have to know how to introduce still shots. Then you have to know how to find out how to zoom in and out. Then you have to know how to use captioning. Then you get to know how to do timing, which means putting together all of the audio that goes with the video that you supposedly matched up when you did the original interview. And then you find out that one or the other doesn't sound right. Oh, yeah. Give me an office anytime, anytime. They're old and they don't tell, and they're grateful as hell. Give me an office every time. All right, well, I've only got 4 you guys here. And I really don't want to, well, yes, I do. I want to finish this. So well, I got 3 of these now. Well, if I got 3 of you at least to hang out, I can finish this this glass of Congress Street and call it a day. Oh, no, it's not. No, freelance is not for the timid. No, no. You gotta be a real mercenaire, mercenary boy. I tell you this. Okay, Monica. Thank you very much for bringing that up. That's going to be the story that's going to end this one. Okay, okay, sweet Jesus. It comes down to being a mercenary. Yes, freelance does. Okay, I'm preaching to the choir. I know this, but here it goes. Once upon a time, a long time ago, in a universe long ago and far away, I was a budding freelance writer and starting out. And I was approached. I pitched something to Fat Marv Shankin, who did Market Watch and Wine Spectator and all these good things. But anyways, Market Watch called me in, and they were going to do a special insert to Market Watch that had to do with uh, a series of beers. They had a portfolio. I believe it was at least a dozen beers. And so they brought me in, and what they wanted to do was to show that these were crafted beers. Notice I said crafted, not craft beers. So I go in, and they give me the list of crafted beers, which included Heineken and I think Molson and there were a bunch of others, but they also had Sierra Nevada and Anchor and a couple of others. But I mean, they were stretching the boundaries. So I sat there and listened, and there was three of them there. One of them I later found out, and I'll give you the name later on because it fits him perfectly. Who was the fellow that handled the account? There was a fellow that handled the account. There was the account manager, and then there was somebody had to do with editorial. And so the three people were there. So I figured, well, okay, I got the three of them there, and so I'm going to listen. And so they laid out the project, and it was going to be so many thousand words. It was going to involve so many different pictures, but they had the pictures. It had to be done in such amount of time, and so they said, and it was going to be going as an insert into Market Watch. So I said, okay. I said, okay, no problem. I said, now, what it comes down to is what part of the budget do I get? What part of the budget is for my editorial? And they sat there and they said $1,500. Now, I know Fat Marv was worth a shitload more than that. I also know that there's a big difference between advertorial and editorial. Editorial comes out of the editorial budget. Advertorial comes out of the advertising budget. The advertising budget is a load larger than the editorial budget. Now, back then, I would have been tempted to say, yes, sir, very much, sir. I'll take that right away, sir. I'll run with it, sir. But no. I took 3 business cards, and I stood up, and I gave it to each one of the gentlemen, and I said, fellas, I don't want to waste your time, and you don't want to waste my time. So why don't you give me a call when you've got a bigger part of the budget? Thank you very much. I really appreciate this. I shook their hands, thanked them very much. They thanked me. I walked out. I went downstairs to, I believe that it was called the Dory, D-O-R-Y, and had 2 martinis and went home. As soon as I got home, back when you had the light that used to go on the answering machine, the little red light's on. Okay. So I listened to the message, and yes, it was from the Schenken organization. And so I dialed the number, and I asked for, you're going to love the name. And if he is watching, if he ever sees this, I'm sorry. Your name fit this perfectly. And it was Don Gotterdam. And God damn, I will never, ever do another one. But Don, oh boy, he called up and he said, Peter, he said, I said, yeah. He says, you still interested? And I said, well, I thought, shit, you tell me why I should be interested. And he says, well, we'll go up to $5,000. At that time, I says, okay, I'll do $5,000. And I will never do another advertorial again for that amount of money. I'm going for 10. I should move the decimal somewhere, but just because he called every hour on the hour for a good 5 days. Everything had to have the same number of words. You couldn't use this word. You couldn't use that word. I learned what working as an advertorial was all about. So when you say freelancing isn't for the timid, no. Sometimes you do have to walk away from an offer. And as the gambler says, you know, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. Well, I didn't fold on that when I called. but I learned. I learned from that. So no, that was a win. That was a win because I actually got up and walked away. And I think that's something as a freelance is very difficult, is almost impossible to do. So you've got me talking, so I haven't been able to finish. Haven't been able to finish my beer. All right. Those of you who are going to stay, are we going to go it for the full hour? Almost the hour? No. Yeah, why not? I have my yes. You know something? I do have standards. Carrie, right down there. I have yes, and I'm going to get serious for a minute. I really am. As a journalist, as just simply a writer, someone who puts down their thoughts and who puts down their thoughts. If there's anything you have to do that you have to do that, is a belief in yourself, of course, which can be misdirected. But the one thing you truly need is honor. Tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Don't dress it up anyway. Don't slant it anyway. As well, as good as you know the facts, you tell them. And if you can, if firsthand is the only way, and even then, it's difficult. Because if you observe something firsthand, you might not know what you're looking at. When the original explorers came to North America and they gave whiskey to the Indians, to the Native Americans, to the indigenous people, these people drank it and they whooped and hollered and all kinds of good shit. And the people who gave it to them figured, oh, well, they're either allergic to it or they're going to war. And no, what they were doing is that they were using it as a drug to talk to their gods. That was what they were doing. But if you didn't know what you were looking at, you didn't see it. Well, I was going somewhere with that. It was a pretty damn good thought. But I get wound up. Oh, standards. That's what it is. Honor. Absolutely. And when it comes down to it, as a journalist, as a writer, I have seen I think that the New York Times used to be this thick. I know a couple of the others for the rules of ethics and journalism ethics. They had books like this, huge books. I mean, you could read through. I mean, it was incredible. And every one of them came down quite simply to something that Carrie and I both know. Very simple. As a cadet, you will not lie, steal, cheat, or tolerate those that do. I will not lie to either my editor or to my readers. I will not steal. I will not plagiarize. I will not cheat my editor, my publisher, or my readers out of anything. If it involves it, I will tell it. That's all there is to it, and I won't tolerate anyone who does. It's very simple. That's all there is to it. And the thing is that there's no such thing as black and white. Those are standards. If you can meet those standards, fine. If I can find 3 sources that say the exact same thing and they're not related, I'm pretty much got an idea that it's probably true. I check it out myself. Now, believe me, checking it out yourself, an eyewitness, again, you have to know what you're looking at. So I have to research it first, then go take a look at it, then taste it, then talk to the person about it or whatever the story is. Because if you don't go in prepared, if you don't go in with some information at least about what's going on, you can't meet the standards that you have set. And you've got to set standards for yourself. Because somebody without honor, if you can't trust somebody, if I can't say that I've given you my word When I do that, I do. I give you my word. There should be absolutely no question about that. So, yeah, standard, honor. Well, I'm going to trust that the five of you who are still watching will honor our situation. We'll stay as much inside as possible. I get out and walk across the Brooklyn Bridge in the morning at 7 o'clock when there's very few people there. In fact, I've got to take my camera tomorrow and video going all the way across and all the way back. It takes about a half hour. It might be very boring, but at least it'll be a record of what it was like to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge on April 8th at 7 o'clock in the morning in a driving rain. So, for those of you looking forward to tomorrow, if you are, I'm going to bring out the French toast, and I've got the if there's anybody who's interested, this is a Madame Patrini, I believe it is. Yeah, Patrini. This is a gin from a distillery in Utah, Mormon land. Absolutely. We have done it. We did a tasting of this that was absolutely incredible at the Henry Street Ale House. And so what I would like to do is either tomorrow or the day after, for those of you who are interested, if you're interested, let me know what you'd like to, if you'd like to see this. I'll do a tasting of this and compare it to the tasting that we did, and I'll give you the link that we did at the Ale House. But this is, we had some tourists come in, and as you can see, this is an opaque bottle, so there's not much left in here. And there was a good group of people. So if folks are interested in spirits, do let me know, because it's not all a beer and it's not all pontification. It's just like if you were in your local bar and I was somebody sitting at the seat next to you. And let's see. Oh, we're at 52 minutes and 52 seconds, 54 seconds. I have to be like a hockey announcer and think like 3 seconds before I say it. Well, anyways, for those of you who are here, thank you very much. Carrie and Mary and Monica and Steve and Robert, and let's see, who else do we have up there? The rest of you are unidentified, but please know that I do appreciate it. You visiting. I hope that, as I say, it makes me know that I'm not talking to a microphone and a camera. It also, it's, I hope, a way to send a smile around your way. So until tomorrow, and I'll be here tomorrow, may all of your beers and may all of your rest of the night meet expectations. It was a pleasure to see you all. Thank you very much.